How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. And welcome to the first official episode of a new side series we're going to be doing on the show called Hidden Horror. And we're going to get into a little bit about what Hidden Horror is once we get to the main part of the episode. But this is a series you guys do not want to miss. Set your notifications. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the show wherever you're listening to the show, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get the show. Make sure you're leaving me a rating, a review, a thumbs up, a comment, whatever interactions you guys can do to the show. I appreciate it so much. And make sure if you have any friends, family members, co-workers, whoever who would enjoy this show, make sure you're spreading the good word about the House of Horror and pointing this show in their direction. Spreading the good word really means a lot to me, you guys. And without further ado, we're getting to the first episode of Hidden Horror, which is about Kolchak the Night Stalker. The first ever film just simply called The Night Stalker. The Kolchak part came later, but we're gonna get into all of that and more coming at you right now in the show. So now it's time to get spooky. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of Hidden Horror. I am Buddy, and I'm here with my co-host for this subset of Buddy's House of Horror, Midnight Miles. Very excited to be here today. Very excited to have Miles with me. How's it going, dude?
Not too bad, man. This is something that we've been talking about for a little bit. Something I was mulling over for a while, just to do some different type of episodes of the podcast. Maybe something a little shorter, just have us focus on more of one idea or one thought instead of doing some of our more longer episodes. So I'm already talking way too much, but anyways, thank you for having me, Kat. I'm back.
Yeah, very excited to get this show on the road. So basically what we're doing here, as Miles alluded to, Hidden Horror, it's a new sort of mini-series within the Buddy's House of Horror universe, whatever we want to call it.
There we go. I like
where
that.
we are showcasing some lesser-known horror films. It doesn't have to be something incredibly obscure, but it has to be just films that aren't talked about, in our opinion, enough. And basically this show is a big excuse for us to clear out our watch list on Letterboxd, clear out some of the films on our shelf that have been sitting there forever, rewatch some things that we've been wanting to rewatch for years. Maybe we're watching it for the first time. Maybe it's a film that one of us has seen and holds in high regard, and we've just been dying to watch it with the other person. One of the things we are challenging ourselves to do is for us to have the film on physical media. If you guys are watching with us at home, we'll let you know if it's available on streaming or where you can watch it. But for us, we will be watching stuff that we physically own, whether it be VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. I have an HD DVD upstairs, but I don't have an HD DVD player. Whatever the case is, it's just something from our collection that we really want to dig up, give the spotlight, dedicate an entire episode to that one specific film. This is kind of the spiritual successor to our underrated film series that we did.
Yes.
Not every episode is going to be like this pilot. This pilot episode, I wanted to do it a little bit differently, just because it is a special episode. It is the first episode of this show. So we are going to be recording this intro before we watch the film. We're going to watch the film and then come talk about our thoughts about it. Most of these episodes, we have already watched it. We just sit it down one shot. Record the whole thing. But this one I wanted to do a little bit differently, just because it is the first episode, just to give you guys a little introduction to what the show is actually going to be about. And that's pretty much it. Most episodes aren't going to have this explanation of all the rules and criteria. Obviously, we just jump right into things. Is there anything else you want to say about the concept of the show? Because Miles was the main person to sort of formulate this idea for the show. So is there anything else you can really add to that? Or?
I think you went over everything. I couldn't have said it better myself, basically. But I will say that I always love, and I know you do too, looking for new things to watch or revisiting things or stuff like that. And I started, I'm always reading about horror, or I've gotten more into horror podcasts the last handful of years, found some people that I like, and I've actually come to enjoy, again, like hearing quick reviews or clips or things like that about films in general, horror films in general, even films that I haven't seen. I didn't used to not like that. I wasn't a fan of that, but it's actually grown on me to I don't mind some things being spoiled. I've actually found that it makes me seek out the film, and it doesn't ruin the viewing experience. Is that something you can understand? I know that's something that I wasn't fond of in the past, but also as the years have gone on, you buy something here, you buy something here, you buy something here. Inevitably, you're going to have a bunch of stuff that, maybe you watched it 5 years ago when you bought it. Or in this case, I'm not going to lie, I don't know about any of the films we might do on this series, but there have been times where I found something that was still wrapped from 3 years ago, and I'm like, let me unwrap this and watch this, because I want that moment. You have that moment where it's like you do have your own personal library, your own collection, your own hidden horror within your own place, whatever. You're like, oh my God, that's where so-and-so is. I haven't watched that since I was 8 years old. Today's the day, and those are the little things, as lame as this next part might sound, those are the little things that make me excited on my day-to-day. So that's basically all I have to say. I'm excited to do this series, and I'm excited to see where you take us, where I take us. Excited to see what some of these films that I'm revisiting after 15 years, what it's like to be an adult and watch this again, see if I still feel the same or have the same fond memories, or if it fucking sucked after all this time.
Yeah, we won't sugarcoat it if it's something that we didn't enjoy on a rewatch. But yeah, as you said, some of these are films that are hidden within our own collections. Some of them are stuff that we haven't seen in a while. In the case of today's episode, it's a hidden horror, mainly sort of to Miles, because today we're going to be watching a film that I hold in very high regard, something I've wanted to watch with Miles for a long time. But before we get into that, I have a little care package for Miles. Miles and I like to give each other little care packages from time to time. So consider this just a thank you for all the episodes we've done so far, all the ones we'll do in the future. Could be an early birthday present, if you will, kind of. Right. And of course, this is in addition to the already lucrative deal that you have signed with Buddy's House of Horror for all the shows we do.
That's true. Thank you for the sponsorship. I all these years I've wanted to be sponsored by a podcast and actually make a living off of it. So thank God, finally, I can maybe quit my day job.
Yeah. So you can go ahead, open that up there.
Right now?
Yeah, on the show.
We're doing this live on the show. I have no idea what this is, by the way. No idea what we're watching. I have no clue.
Like I said, it's a special episode, so we got gifts. It's not a pair of shoes. So here's Miles' care package.
Oh my! Thanks.
So describe to the viewers what you got there. And by the way, these are cold. I just took these out of the fridge right now.
I feel it.
So if you wanted one during this, you could. No pressure though.
Glowberry Primes. These are going to be phenomenal. I wish we were sponsored by Prime, being from Ohio, but we'll work. You work on that.
I know. We've got Logan Paul on speed dial, obviously.
Thank you. Wow, they are actually cold. I could smash one of these. I probably will tonight.
It's got some s'more time coffee.
S'more time spooky fucking coffee. Look at that. That's me and that's you, bro. We're sitting by the camp. This is actually how we record. If we had an actual video cast of this, I would put this up because this is me and you.
It's a werewolf and a Bigfoot sitting around a campfire, by the way. So do the shirt last because the film we're watching today is in the shirt.
All right. You know what?
He's got some candies in there.
I've got some candy. I normally don't even barely eat candy, but guess what? I am going to eat a piece of candy because we talked about this earlier. It is about to be what I consider spooky season. I consider this the last weekend of summer. So
we're recording this in advance. You'll hear it during spooky season.
You'll hear it during spooky season. Sorry to ruin that, but I am going to eat.
But we're going to get a live review of the Ghost Toast
Have you had this?
I've had it, yeah. It's
Ghost Toast
Kit Kats.
Kit Kat. Did this just hit?
This just hit stores, yeah. This is brand new this year.
All right. I like the color. I'm unwrapping it. It's kind of orange. It's got an orange, milky color. Let's try it.
If you hate it, you can say it sucks. We're not sponsored by Kit Kat yet. But this could be some potential to get us sponsored by Kit Kat.
This is the best, no joke, I would tell you if it sucked ass. This is the best Kit Kat I ever had in my life.
It tastes like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, doesn't it?
Incredible, yeah. Wow. I recommend this to everyone. Ghost Toast. Thank you, buddy. Honestly, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, those are good.
We got some spooky Reese's pumpkins. Oh, a bat and a pumpkin. Damn, that bat's cute. Hell yeah. Wow, that Ghost Toast was actually phenomenal.
I don't even know what else I fucking put in there. Oh, the Sega Collector's Pack for PS3.
Was this the one I thought? Oh, it actually is in here. Is this the one that Emily? Because Emily was like, hey, and then she's like, oh, it's not in there.
Yeah, but it's in there.
Fuck yeah.
So the Sega Genesis, Collector's?
Ultimate Collection. Yes, I love... Big Sega mark.
Yeah.
Is anyone? What should I do now?
So obviously you have the Graveyard Goods Resident Evil shirt, the vintage wash that I bought for myself but never wore, so it's yours now.
Why did you do that?
Because I never wore it. So it's yours.
You never wanted to wear it?
I never wore it.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm trying to give him back. I'm trying to give him back what he's giving me because I feel so bad. But all right, what? I knew we were gonna be watching this. No, I'm dead.
I know. I didn't hide it. I didn't hide it at all.
I had a feeling if it wasn't this, I had no idea what it was gonna be. Like I honestly was like, I wonder if it's the Night Stalker. Spoiler: it's the Night Stalker on VHS. Damn, this is hard.
He's got the fresh VHS of the Night Stalker. One of my favorite films of all time.
No mold. I've actually wanted to see this, so this is a great fucking thing. Thank you so much. Seriously, hell yeah. This is fresh.
Yeah.
Did you find this out or did you order somewhere?
Huh? No, I've had it. I actually have doubles of that, so that's one of my doubles.
This is thank you.
Yeah.
We actually have hit the other week. Only I know this because of It Chapter 2, the release date. We actually hit 5 years of actually hanging out in Ohio, so
that's hard.
I'll take this as an anniversary.
Hard. True.
So, thank you so much.
Of course.
Seriously, this is
You're welcome. And I guess without further ado, let's fucking pop this thing in.
Let's watch the Night Stalker. Hell yeah.
Alright, boys and ghouls. Well, we literally just wrapped up watching the film a mere seconds ago. I'll let Miles have the floor for this one because I've obviously seen the film multiple times. So I want to hear from you. What did you think? What you like? What didn't you like? Just give me your general consensus of the last 70 minutes or so.
So I kind of said as it was starting that I was like, oh, it's like reading the copyright off the title card when the film started. Oh, 1971, you know? And you're like, yeah, it came out in 72, whatever. And that's kind of like 70 to 70, like 4 is kind of the era of like old watches that I've been watching lately and stuff like that. And I have a lot of fun just memories from 70s films growing up. I love 80s, but if I'm being honest, like I love the look of a film from the 70s and just like the way, not even just the look, but the storytelling. So when this started, I was like, this is fitting in, like, I already liked the vibe. I liked just the look of everything, the fact that it was in Vegas, because honestly, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I haven't really seen a lot of films from, like, Vegas as, like, a set piece, like, from this time period. I don't know. I just thought I'll let you talk a bit too, but I just thought everything was starting great. Like I was like, oh, I'm really into this just to start it off.
So I guess like basing it because you mentioned Vegas. So like we're looking at the title card right now. Great artwork, by the way, but it's a very like obviously this is early 70s, so it's a very proto Vegas setting. Like it's not the Vegas that we think of today.
Yes.
It's kind of in the building blocks of what Vegas is now. So like smaller casinos, smaller this or that. You can drive around, but you can see just sort of even like when you get into the police force characters, like how Vegas is going to become what it is today based on this film that took place in that time period.
Yeah.
Like you see what was going on at the time sort of has the building blocks of what it is now. One of the reasons I wanted to start with this film is because I know that the past few times we've gotten together, we've really been getting into these really niche, like 70s films.
Yeah.
So I knew that this would really fit in with a lot of the stuff that we've been watching. And I mean, it just checks like a lot of the boxes. Like you were talking about, like before we started recording, we're both big fans of Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack in this is all this like jazzy, like I don't know how to describe like exactly what it sounds like without actually playing what it sounds like. But it sounds like the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack. Like it sounds like
it's very chaotic, fast jazz.
Yeah.
Something will happen, and there'll be these like wild musical cues over maybe just him taking photographs in this film or him just staring off in thought. One example, rushing ahead a lot. Spoiler, I mean, this is all a spoiler, but you didn't really go into the premise of what the film is. Do you want me to?
No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear it from your perspective. Yeah.
So it starts. I also like detective shows or kind of just the way that this is set up. It reminds me of a lot of, because this did become a TV show, it reminds me of a lot of TV shows I watched with my parents at a very young age because they love stuff from the 70s. So it just kind of brought the right amount of nostalgia where I was like, already, I'm like, no, I'm comfortable with this in a good way.
Yeah.
Felt like welcoming for me. I like any kind of like fringe of society, like loner oddball characters too. It's like if a film starts with that, like the whole basis on that. I knew there was going to be supernatural elements and aspects of it. So immediately once I started like getting the vibe for Kolchak's character and like, you know, I like when people, and there's a big, let's say supporting cast of characters where it's like, he knows this guy and he knows this girl and this is how he's getting the info and he puts all the puzzle pieces together and this is how he gets on these cases and stuff. Just all the aesthetics and all the storytelling and plot devices, I was like, oh, I really like this. Like within the first, 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm in,
Yeah. So I guess like talking, like while we're on the subject of like the character development, like you can tell that Darren McGavin, the actor, and this is just having a blast like playing this role. And this was sort of like the role he was born to play. Like he had done other stuff before this. Obviously, he was in stuff after this. He was in A Christmas Story. That's what most people know him by.
Right.
But like his mannerisms, just everything in this is just absolutely like perfect. Like you get the sense that this is exactly the type of character that would get himself into this situation.
Right.
Where the best thing about his character in this film, because obviously this is the first kind of step in his process, obviously, we see 21 other things happen after this on film, but at the beginning of this, he's not some sort of nutcase guy running around being like, oh, there's vampires, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very clear that midway through the film is when he learns how to dispose of a vampire, like what vampire mythology is. He is taking the approach of, I'm a good reporter, this is where everything is logically headed to.
Right.
Like, it's not
right.
he's not a conspiracy theorist. I mean, you can debate he becomes that later or whatever. But in this, it's very much taken from a realistic approach.
Yes. Yeah, exactly what you said. I mean, basically, just the way that not even that he was a skeptic. Because, I like shows where there's kind of like that skeptic.
Yeah.
But he wasn't even that. He just kept going like clue after clue, solution after solution, where it's like, well, it has to be. And then I did like, I'll bring in now, his girlfriend, Gail. It's his girl, yeah, because they were in
it's his girlfriend.
Yeah, girlfriend. But just the fact that she's like, I think you should really think about this. And he was open. Like, he was really open to anything. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't just like a... 70s, I'm off on another tip, but 70s, you see a lot of characters in a lot of films where they're just very one note, one thing. He was very multifaceted, and I just like the way that his character was willing to go along for the ride, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. where do you want me to go with this conversation? Because I have all kinds of background. Like, I don't need to get into everything. But, like, is there anything, like, specifically that, like, you're interested in hearing about? Or, I know you had brought up, so, like, obviously this was a made-for-TV film. I want to say it was the ABC movie of the week.
Okay.
But basically the way it worked out was the studio that made the television film was not the same network that did the show. So what happened was they were able to have the rights for the Kolchak character, and in this film he's not in it as much, but the secondary lead, like, in the novel and in the show is his boss, the Vincenzo character.
Okay.
So they're the only ones that carry on from not only this film, but the sequel, The Night Strangler, and then into all 20 episodes of the series. Okay. Other than that, the second film, well, obviously, spoiler alert, at the end of this film, he does get kicked out of Las Vegas. The second film takes place in Seattle, and then the 20 episodes of the show are in Chicago. So,
okay.
You find out at the end of this that his boss also is run out of town, and they both happen to end up in Seattle, and then after that, they both go to Chicago together after that.
That's sick. I actually am curious about, like, their relationship to make it all the way around the United States together. What's the sequel called one more time?
The Night Strangler.
Strangler, right. Night Strangler. What was the time frame between the two films and then the TV series?
It was all a year apart. So The Strangler came out in 1973, and then the series started in 1974.
Okay, all right.
So just to do a little bit of the stats, so this is a hidden horror film now. But at the time, so the original air date was January 11th, 1972 on a Tuesday. It's important that it's on a Tuesday. Because back then there was a movie coming out every single week on television. So this was the most viewed TV movie ever made to that point when this came out. It had a couple, like, teasers running throughout, but basically this was a phenomenon, like, when it started. So it's weird that it kind of, like, immediately fell off, like, by the end of the 70s. It's obviously been surpassed by a highest rated TV stuff since then.
Right.
But it had a 33.2 rating, which basically means 1/3 of all households had it on TV.
That's insane.
And it had a 54 share, which is the percentage audience at the time. So 1/2 of the people watching television on this random Tuesday night were watching this.
That's incredible.
So, but now it's like no one's ever fucking heard of it. Yeah. So, like, I was a bit of a film snob in college. So I took a class about vampire films, like specializing in vampire films. And I don't want to say I went in there with a little bit of an attitude, but I went in there knowing that I had seen or at least heard of every single film we were going to talk about in this class.
Right.
And then we got to the 70s, and I was like, all right, we're going to talk about Salem's Lot. We're going to talk about whatever else was around that time. Barely touched on those films at all, and this was the key film of the 70s. A little bit of the behind the scenes with the people involved in this. So obviously you saw Richard Matheson as the writer, because Miles came up and he's like legend. The producer of this was also the producer of Dark Shadows.
I saw Dan Curtis.
Curtis, and then obviously he did an interpretation of Dracula. He did trilogies of terror, all kinds of stuff. The director John Moxley, not to be confused with John Moxley, he directed one of my favorite 60s era films, which was The City of the Dead, known in America as Hotel Horror. I'm sure you've at least heard of it.
I've heard of it.
The one with Christopher Lee.
Yeah. I know. I can see the poster in my head, actually.
Yeah.
So.
And then Jeff Rice, who was the writer. So this was an unpublished novel. They picked it up as this film, and he's like, yeah, I'm Jeff Rice. Rice is going to be the top horror writer of the 70s. And he was right. It was a Rice, but it was not him. It was Anne Rice.
Facts.
But it was just like the perfect storm of all these like legends of the industry coming together to make a random TV movie. which I'm sure they were kicking themselves in the ass that had they put a little bit more budget into this, this is something that could have been in theaters.
Right.
I mean, obviously, like, when you watch it now, like, there's obvious, like, the fade-ins, fade-out when there were commercial breaks.
Right.
But, like, had you shown this to, like, test audiences or something, like, you could have gone back and, like, reworked this and done it theatrically.
Oh, yeah, 100%. When I was...
Hold that thought.
So when I was watching this, obviously I saw the commercial break, fade in and out, like you said, but... I never for once thought this was a made-for-TV film. Honestly. Like, I didn't even think about it. You said it before it started, which I knew about this series as someone that was like it's a little bit off, but a big X-Files fan. Huge X-Files fan. Everyone always says, if you watch X-Files, watch Kolchak. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a related show, stuff like that. So I already knew a lot about, as far as, like, the basic stuff. And like I've told you before, I think I've seen a couple of the episodes on like late night TV, but you know, otherwise this has been pretty much like a blind spot for me.
Yeah. So you bring up the X-Files. We don't have to go on a whole huge tangent. Obviously, a huge influence on the show. As a huge fan, like, what do you kind of like think of it? And that, like, can you like? Because I haven't seen all of the X-Files, so like, do you see like the influence in the X-Files, or like, is it just something?
I feel it's kind of funny, and maybe I'm really reaching, but I feel like if you took Kolchak, different parts of him, just from watching this first film, you could split him into Mulder and Scully.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, into their two different types. Does that make sense? Does that make sense at all? Yeah. Because you have Mulder, who, you know, is always pushing buttons, always, you know, doesn't want to suppress anything. You use the word suppress the truth, suppress the news lot, and this, I'll use that for this. Anything. I see him, the go-getter, and the guy that wants to get to the bottom of everything. But then I also see the guy who's needs to look at hard facts and hard evidence and still kind of have a level enough head, or believe he has the level head, in Scully. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that too far of a reach? Because I definitely see the influence in both of them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a direct influence. There were the couple episodes of the X-Files where Darren McGavin was a guest star of it.
Right.
Because Chris Carter had asked him, like, come back as Kolchak as, like, a cameo or whatever.
Yes.
And he's like, no, like, it's not going to... But he basically is. Like, they use a different name or whatever, but he's, like, the father of the X-Files or whatever. He's, like, bunkered down in this apartment and all this stuff.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean... there's definitely, if you do choose to continue on with this, the second film is, I want to say it has a higher budget than this one, and it's longer than this, because that one actually has a full 90-minute cut.
Okay.
This one, it was made for 70 minutes, so it could be on that 2-hour mark on TV.
Right.
The other one, they have the full cut, and then they have like the TV cut. In the full version, they have Al Lewis is in it, Grandpa Munster, but he's only in the full version. He's not in the TV version. They like cut all of his stuff out or whatever. In the TV show, like, there's obviously like a big dip in budget, because instead of a film, they're making a 20-episode show. So the show's a little bit hit or miss. Like, there's some good, real good quality episodes. But a lot of them are, you know, like that good, like, campy 70s TV that either of us could enjoy or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
What else do you think? What else do you...
I liked... So the basic thing of, like, this film is they basically... all these women are being killed by some sort of murder in Vegas, and they've all lost a ton of blood. Well, obviously it comes out more and more that it's either someone that feels they're a vampire or a quote-unquote vampire, which is like what the police force and everyone doesn't want to believe. Kolchak is the one that takes all these like clues and tips and puts all these things together with the help of his girlfriend that we mentioned, and says is a quote unquote vampire. But I love the initial like introduction to the vampire, just the light across his eyes with like the contact lenses or whatever. I liked how simple the vampire looked, but also at the same time, I think just adding those contact lenses, it brought something different that I didn't see with the 70s a lot at that time. I feel like I'm talking like, I mean, I guess I did with Christopher Lee, but like a lot of the other vampire type films, just a guy with fangs. It's like nothing special or whatever. Even just adding those eyes and the way that he was portrayed in his mannerisms, it just felt different to me at the time. Does that make sense?
And something I like about him is he's not portrayed as some sort of vampire mastermind. Like, obviously, like Dracula, he has this whole plan or whatever.
Right.
Like, he's kind of a clumsy vampire. Like, they explain that, like, he was doing this in Europe in a little bit, and he kind of got himself in a pickle, and he's kind of, like, strained the Canadian-American border, and then he ends up in Vegas. Right. And then the couple times he does end up getting caught, he's, like, stealing blood out of a fridge in the hospital, and he's, like, running around, like, a hotel pool and, like, all this stuff. Like, he's kind of, like, doesn't have all this shit together, which
not at all.
You kind of like don't see that much. Like you always see like a Dracula or a Barlow or like some people that like really have their shit together.
Professional vampires, right?
Yeah. So it's just a different take on it. So
I personally, talking about that, I can make it akin to Friday the 13th Part 2. Why I love that, because it feels like such a realistic take on someone that is not an expert in their field yet. Is there a better way to say that?
Yeah.
Can you see that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because Jason wasn't fully doing his thing yet. He was,
he's tripping, he's falling downstairs, getting kicked in the nuts. I mean, this guy, he's not even
shot like a billion times.
Shot a billion times. Doesn't even try to run away. He kind of just looks back and flexes at him a couple times when he's about to get shot at. There is some good comedy in this. I will say this, like some of the little like quips and like Kolchak's quick lines, but also there's a ton of good facial expression comedy, which I feel like is something people don't do often anymore. Do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Like just a little look or something like that, but it's so on point. It cracks me up. I don't know, man. It's actually, I'll be honest. This was better than I thought. I thought it was gonna be really good. Because, like, usually when you really like something, I watch, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like we talked about American Movie. I watched that, and, like, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. It's really good.
It's a hidden horror, for sure.
Yeah. This is the perfect first film, honestly, for the show.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
I mean, I've talked about this film to death on, like, a million different shows, so I don't really have like a ton of stuff I can add that wouldn't be repeating myself from a million different things that I've already done.
I do want to continue watching this though. Like now I feel like it kind of like kickstarted it for me, where it's like, all right, I need to see the Night Strangler and then I need to see the show, like just all the way
so
through.
the one aspect of this show that not only fans of the show but Darren McGavin, who was the lead actor and then eventually on the show, basically he kind of was the showrunner, but he wasn't credited for it, which is a lot of the reasons why he canceled the show, essentially, because he was sick of the Monster of the Week thing. He was doing all this stuff he wasn't paid for, and he was just kind of done with it. Okay. A lot of this stuff is a little bit repetitive. So, the second film, it's essentially the same premise, only instead of a vampire, it's like a centuries-old, like, alchemist who's doing, like, similar things to keep himself alive for a certain number of years. The show, there's such a range of villains that he's taking on. The fourth episode of the show is actually called The Vampire, and it's sort of a direct sequel to this. Like, it actually ties in a lot of ways, and it's more of a spiritual successor to this than the second film.
Okay.
It also stars as the main police chief who he's feuding with, because every episode there's a couple of people that come back, but for the most part there's a whole new like cast of people he's interacting with in each. Okay. Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World is the police chief in that one.
Oh, legend.
So that one's pretty good. There's a good episode called Horror in the Heights, where he is the monster in that one is basically a shapeshifter who manifests as the person you trust the most. So as it's doing its stalk and slash thing, it could be your husband walking down the alleyway, or it's your grandma, or like your whoever it is.
It's a really cool idea.
There's an episode called Chopper, which I think if you watch it, you're gonna see that Demons was inspired by this, because it is by a headless. It's essentially a remake of the Headless Horseman or whatever.
Okay.
But it's a biker with no head who has a sword, and he's going through like a cinema.
Oh, all right.
Slashing people up. So literally, the first time I saw that, I was like, "This is literally Demons."
Well, you know, a lot of Italian horror, especially like the B Italian horror, they love to fucking rip off ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, they do like blatantly just like love making their own versions of a similar idea. So I would love to see that.
That episode was also directed by Robert Zemeckis. Just so you know.
Legend.
Yeah. So a lot of people got their, like David Chase was one of the key producers on the show too, who later did Sopranos. Obviously.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of like weird people that got their start in some way, shape, or form on this. But those are my recommendations. Horror in the Heights is cool. The Vampire's cool. But yeah, like some of the episodes are hit or miss. But like those, one of them you'll like a lot. There's one where there's a werewolf on the loose on a cruise ship.
Oh,
so that one's pretty hard.
All right,
So,
yeah. I'm just gonna honestly like I will remember the ones that you recommend.
Yeah.
But 20 episodes isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like I could definitely watch that whole thing. I mean, I watched all of Game of Thrones in like 3 months when I first started talking to my current girlfriend. So I think I could handle 20 episodes of Kolchak.
Yeah. As far as for the listeners at home, so the original film is available on VHS. Like I got Miles.
Thank you again.
It was released on DVD with The Night Strangler. It was like a double feature on one DVD, but it's out of print. Kino Lorber has sort of taken over all the media. So like they put this out on Blu-ray, the first film, the second film on Blu-ray, the whole series on Blu-ray now. So they are available. I think the show is available on Peacock, or you can literally just stream it on NBC.com for free.
Oh, wow.
As far as the two films, I don't think they're on a direct streaming service, but they've been uploaded and taken off of YouTube like 100 times, because, I mean, it's hard. Because unless the people who own the rights to this are looking for it, like, they're not going to pull it off of YouTube or whatever.
Right.
So it is accessible. If you're insane like I am, I have a lot of the graphic novels and comic books and stuff based off of it, because for some reason the fandom who are into this, it never really died. Like there's seriously like, I don't want to say hundreds, but at least 100 like side stories and graphic novels and stuff that people have written over the years. Like he's fought Nosferatu, like he's done this and that, like all of it you would assume is non-canon or whatever, but like I mean, he never ages through any of it, so I mean it's fine.
The real vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know what else to say really about it. I mean, I will say it also made me comfortable, a little familiar, because one of my favorite vampire films is Salem's Lot. And yes, completely different story, but just the 70s aesthetic, you know what I mean? I just loved it, you know. And honestly, like I said, I really want to like highlight the vampire before I end here. I really love the look of it, and the guy who played him, I just like the way he was acted. Everything about the vampire was definitely a plus. I could see why it was so memorable for people. I mean, obviously not just because of the vampire, but just the whole presentation, story, the way it's laid out. I don't know. I thought it was great, honestly.
Yeah. There's never one. A lot of people are like, oh, a 70s horror film. Like, you think there's a lot of, like, slow elements or whatever. Like, Kolchak, like, he, like, carries the whole movie. Like, there's not one segment where, like,
no.
you would ever be bored during this, like, ever. Like,
no, not at all.
So, I don't know what else to say about it. I've talked about it a billion times, like I said. So, I'm excited we finally watched it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it wasn't a total bust and you were sitting there like why the fuck did we watch this?
No. No, it wasn't. I'm actually gonna grade it pretty high. I'm itching to maybe a 4.5 for the first watch.
Yeah.
So I'm
Well, that's
really
good.
into it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. We've got a couple episodes of this show in the can, so you're going to be hearing some of those in the upcoming weeks. But if there's any other films you want to hear us record for Hidden Horror, let us know. Reach out to us in some way, and we will see if we can get it covered on the show. We do have a short list of stuff we're doing that'll probably book us out for a couple handfuls of episodes. But after that, I mean, we are obviously down for suggestions, and yeah, I mean...
I just want to thank you again, buddy, for all of the care package. I also drank one of the glowberries. It was excellent. We're basically officially in spooky season now. And thank you for wanting to do this Hidden Horror podcast, because I think it's going to be a blast, man. So thank you again.
Well, that's about it for this time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Hidden Horror. What shows should we be doing in the future? What hidden horror gems are out there that you need to have us review? Let us know. Get in touch with us. If you guys haven't already, make sure you're subscribing to the show everywhere that you get your podcasts. And without further ado, we're just going to wrap this thing up. And it is time now for all of you guys out there to have a great Halloween season. The spooky season is upon us. So now... everyone, take care and stay spooky.